Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Most Merciful. I'd like to welcome you, dear viewers, to another in our series, In the Light of Islam. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. May Allah's peace and blessings be on each and every one of you. In this segment of our program, we're looking at some local questions, question coming in from Ajman, in which brother Muhammad Khan writes, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Dear Dr. Bilal Phillips, could you please answer two questions for me? The first is, what is Islam's view on abortion? And the second is, what is the Islamic sword? I'm a student in high school here in Ajman. Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Okay, the question with regards to abortion. Well, let's look at the Islamic sword first. What is the Islamic sword? Well, we don't have anything which you could really call an Islamic sword. There may be the curved sword, which was common amongst this part of the world and became identified with the Arabs, and it became a symbol used in some Islamic flags and things like this. But there's no specific sword as an Islamic sword. Muslims use whatever was available to them if they're involved in fighting, jihad, etc. And really whatever was most effective was what was used. There's no such thing really as an Islamic sword. The other question with regards to Islam's view on abortion. Now this question is one which fundamentally involves recognizing that Islam is opposed to the taking of life without just cause. This is the starting point. Animals, the taking of lives of animals, Islam prohibits it unless there is a clear, valid reason for the life to be taken. Even the killing of ants, spiders, and things like this, just to kill them just for the sake of killing them, it's not good. Islam prohibits it. And we have to be careful of this, because sometimes our children, they take it as a kind of a game. They'll go around stomping on ants, or killing spiders. Well, where there's harm, where there is danger, etc., to eradicate these insects, etc., is permissible. But just for fun, for sport, no. The Prophet ﷺ had forbidden us from taking birds as our targets. That is, you bought a new rifle, you want to try it out, so you shoot a bird. See how accurate you are, or whatever. No, it's not acceptable. To go hunting, shooting a bird, and eating it, fine. But killing birds just in sport, animals in sport, is forbidden. The idea of the safari, going into Africa or Asia, whatever, hunting elephants and tigers and lions and killing these animals just to put their skins on your wall and trophies, etc. This is not from Islam at all. Islam prohibits this. So, as a basic point, Islam prohibits the taking of the lives of animals. Of course, that is without just cause. Basically, we have three basic reasons where an animal's life can be taken. Where there's danger to humans, the life of that animal is taken to preserve human life. Secondly, for food. As I mentioned, we need to eat food. We can kill certain animals and eat them. And thirdly, for clothing, for example, we use their skins to make belts, shoes, etc., etc. So we may kill the animals for the use of their furs, etc. This is permissible in Islam. Now, some people may object and say, well, but the way you Muslims, you kill your animals, you take these knives and you slit their throats, and it's very bloodthirsty, blood spewing all over the place, very horrible, primitive, harsh. You're hurting the animals doing these things. Well, the fact of the matter is, it's really not hurting the animals. Islam prescribes that the knife be very sharp, like a razor blade. The animal doesn't feel it, and it dies on its own, because we don't cut the head off completely. We only cut the jugular vein, allow the blood to come out by the pumping of the heart. The animal dies gradually. The other methods used of electrocution and stun guns, these kind of things in the West, these are very painful methods. These are very painful methods. So the Islamic method is really, it is a method which relieves the animal of a lot of pain. Anyway, back to our basic topic, the idea of killing that animal, killing it out of a need. Now, when a child develops in the womb of the parents, the mother, naturally, men are not giving birth to children, that child, until the beginning of the 5th month, is considered to be animal life. Once the beginning of the 5th month, then this human soul is put into the child becomes now a human being. Prior to that, it was a potential human being, but it was an animal life. Abortion in this period is still abortion. This is killing a life. Though it may not be killing a human being, but it's still killing a life. And as such, Islam doesn't permit it. Unless the life of the mother is threatened. For example, if it's an ectopic pregnancy, pregnancy in the fallopian tubes or something like this, which may threaten her own life. So they do that to save her life. Otherwise, abortion in Islam, abortion is prohibited. And it's a very, very important point. Islam is very strongly opposed to abortion. And a lot of the countries that speak about human rights and like to point the finger at Muslims, in the case of rights, and then we have to consider how many millions of babies are aborted every year in these countries. What about their rights? Human rights. Those countries, many of the countries that point the finger at the Muslim world today, are among those who are the greatest abusers of human rights in this particular context. The next question that we have was concerning a question that relates back to myself. The reader, or listener, I should say, writes, "Dear Dr. Bilal, could you explain to us what was the reaction of the previous society during the emphasizing and propagation of Islam?" They're referring to when I accepted Islam, which was back in 1972. What was the reaction of the society around me? Of course, at first, when I accepted Islam, the reaction of my friends, society around me, was one of amazement. They found this was really incredulous. How could this happen? Because actually, though I was from a Christian family, my parents were Christians, I grew up as a Christian. When I was in university, I got involved in student politics and these type of things, and then I decided to become a communist. And I became a very active reader. I used to read a lot, Karl Marx and Engels, etc. And I used to invite people to communism, And then all of a sudden, I became a Muslim. Many of my friends were, at that time, communist-oriented political types. They said, "What happened to you? Why did you do that? I mean, couldn't you do anything but that? Couldn't you become some other kind of something, but to become a Muslim? Religion?" Because religion, of course, was looked at as being the opium of the masses. This is the way of drugging the people and abusing them. Well, the reaction, of course, I tried to explain to them, the positive elements of Islam, showing that really, in the communist movement, I mean, I was a communist not because I was enamored with the personality of Marx or Lenin or these people, no, but because communism had expressed itself as being a means of establishing justice in society, protecting the rights of people, ensuring justice, fairness, brotherhood, equality, and all these kind of wonderful terms and ideas. However, as I passed through a few years as a communist, I started to realize from my own reading, studies, and research that, these things were not implemented. They were ideas, concepts, but they were not implemented in Russia and China and these places. In fact, people were far from these things. I came to realize that really it was something not attainable, because it involved changing human nature, which I had doubts about myself. And I saw that really there was no morality in the whole communist movement. There was no morality. Morality was whatever was expedient, whatever forwarded the cause, whatever made the cause go ahead. That was morally good, regardless of how many people were hurt or whatever, regardless. So I started to search again, and then I came across Islam, and I found that all those other principles of justice and fairness and all this are embodied in Islam, but at the same time there was a very strong system of personal morality dealing with the individual, his relationship with God and other human beings. That's the call to this kind of morality. So I tried to explain this